You have in your packets a couple of pieces of information. The first piece of information is I'll start by just talking about why we're here today. We're all aware of the incidents of violence involving firearms that have been happening with unsettling frequency in our nation, and the most recent of which, or at least the one had the most notoriety, is one which occurred in December 14th, 2012, where the faculty and students of Sandy Hook Elementary School in Newtown, Connecticut were fired upon, and it was indeed a national tragedy. It again brought to light the discussion of violence involving firearms, and the discussion has been taking place at the local, state, and national levels. Again, it's one of those things that because of the state's preemption of guns and firearms within the state of Idaho, the city of Moscow's ability as a local government to respond is somewhat limited. That information and the bulk of the materials that you have in your packet today have to do with previous research that was done a couple of years ago, as you will recall, after the incidents where Officer Lee Newbill was killed in the line of duty. There was some discussion about limiting firearms in City Hall and at public meetings. Council was discussing whether or not they wanted to engage in some sort of regulation to that effect on the local level. It was researched by our own legal department and verified by the State Attorney General's office that the field of firearms and gun regulations in the state of Idaho has been preempted by the state of Idaho, that the city has no ability, nor the county have any ability to regulate firearms except regarding the discharge of firearms within the limits of the city. So, suffice it to say that without that ability to regulate, the city is in a position where if the city wishes to make its position known, or if it desires to take a position, then its involvement is in advocacy alone. In that regard, you have a memorandum, and that was a memorandum I just mentioned from Randy Fife. You also have a memorandum that was authored by Chief Duke, that talks about the position that law enforcement, as the chief did research through his professional associations, through his command staff, and the police department in general, he's offered some information in that memorandum which he wanted the council to consider. Based upon that memorandum, a letter has been drafted should the council desire to adopt any of those positions. A letter has been drafted, and I just passed out a letter that was previously considered by Administrative Committee a week ago. There have been a couple of changes to it based upon that information. At the end of if you have it before you, it will be mailed, if approved by the council, to Senator Bart Davis, who is the Senate Majority Leader for the state of Idaho. There will also be letters sent to Representative, I got to get the name correct here, Richard Wills, who is the chair of the House Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee, and Representative Lynn Luker, who is the vice chair of House Judiciary Rules and Administrative Committee. Senator Davis, of course, is the Senate Majority Leader and also a member of the Judiciary and Rules Committee for the Senate. The only other changes that were involved in that letter, there is a slight change at the end of the third short paragraph before the bullet points, where it says recommend consideration of, and there were some structural changes to those, to that sentence, but that's it. There was also a question that occurred at Administrative Committee regarding the definition of assault weapons and how those are defined, and if there is to be a recommendation that access to those weapons be restricted in any way, that they be clearly defined. As you might guess, there are lots of different definitions. The federal government has definitions. A lot of them are extremely lengthy. Found this definition, or at least found one that we felt was fairly descriptive on the State of California Attorney General's website, and I hope that some of you were able to take a look at that. But rather than creating a definition in this document, requesting that the entities that you are requesting review this situation create or settle on a definition of quote-unquote assault weapons, so that we have something in that regard that we can depend on when we're talking about whether access to those types of firearms should be restricted. A question that was also asked, I've not been able to find the answer to, is whether black powder rifles and the slugs that those shoot, the lead, typically they're balls, or a slug of some sort, whether that is in the definition, the federal definition of ammunition, 50 caliber or higher. There are several black powder rifles that are over 50 caliber, 54 caliber, for instance. So ammunition, we will continue to look at that. If it is, if that sort of, and if you shot a black powder rifle, it isn't a shell. It is actually a piece of lead that is stuffed down the barrel ahead of some gunpowder. So it isn't ammunition in and of itself. It is just an inert lead ball, so to speak. So with that, we have that letter presented for your consideration. Should you want to take a position, as I indicated, your authority at this point is mainly in the advocacy role. You'll also note that I was talking to the mayor before the meeting, and if you look at the copies to be provided to others, that is an extremely abbreviated list. We've not included the representatives of the University of Idaho, Latah County, federal authorities outside of our legislative contingent, so that likely will be expanded as well. So tonight what we're looking for is direction as to if the council wants to proceed with taking this advocacy role, if this letter as drafted meets your needs. If so, we're looking for direction on putting it out as is for the signature of the mayor and the council president, or making amendments if you so desire. Prior to that discussion, Chief Duke is here mainly in a position of answering questions. If the council or the mayor has questions for him in his technical expertise, as police chief is certainly to stand for those. But as far as the formal presentation, that concludes the presentation.
Thank you, Gary. So the letter here is based on Chief Duke's memo. So the admin committee took a look at this last week. True?
Yes,
and we had a conversation about it?
Yes,
All
we
right.
did. And the main objection was brought by Councilman Kraus about the definition of assault weapon, and so I will let him speak to what he thinks of this rephrasing of the memo, of the letter.
Okay, but otherwise the committee was...
As Mr. Kraus said, that he agreed with 90% of it, and I think a lot of this has to take place, I asked Chief Duke, a lot of this has to take place at the federal level, and what we're doing is supporting our police officers in encouraging the state to do what it can. The Newtown situation was a perfectly legal gun purchase, was background check. I mean, everything was legal, but it's just who it got into the hands of was the problem. So I don't know, locking the barn door after the cow gets loose is kind of not necessarily constructive, but a lot of the bullet points here, such as mental illness and the issuing of permits and requiring the background checks and the limiting access to high capacity, and you have to have a good definition of high capacity gun magazines, that seem to be okay with the rest of the committee. But Wayne had some serious concerns about definition of limiting assault weapons because there is no definition. So,
Thank you, Sue.
I was going to let Wayne speak to that. It's okay.
Wayne, would you like to comment on the modifications here?
Well, I always have comments. I wasn't aware I was going to really be the first person to comment tonight. First of all, I want to thank Chief Duke for the research that you did, very concise letter referencing material that you put together. I did have some concerns, as I expressed at admin. I still have some concerns. I did look at the California definition of assault weapons. I don't find that acceptable. I find that there's some things in there that could apply to sporting rifles. I still have concerns about limiting the sale of ammunition 50 caliber or higher, because I think you could define black powder weapons or black powder hunting rifles as ammunition also. 98% of this I can support. It's all makes a lot of common sense. I particularly support background checks for all private sales as well as at gun shows. I especially feel that concealed carry permits, the requirements for them need to be much, much stricter. They need to go to the point of advanced training, not only in the handling of a weapon, but also the moral implications of utilizing it and the financial implications of utilizing it. A lot of people may not understand it, but if a person takes the life of somebody else in their own defense, they're probably still setting themselves up for financial ruin in the fact that they'll be defending themselves, if not criminally, but civilly, most likely. So it's a humongous responsibility. I still have a really difficult time supporting this because it doesn't speak, to my heart, it doesn't speak to the problem that we have. All of these, and all of this, as I said, makes sense. But it's a Band-Aid that covers a huge festering wound that this country has. Why is this country to the point where so many people just kill people? What's in our hearts? Every ordinance, every regulation that's passed is passed because of a moral issue. You're trying to legislate correct moral actions that are not there. I'm gravely concerned to the point of almost being heartbroken at the condition that this country is in right now. The inability to get along, the amount of people that are scared, not just financially, but they're scared for their own safety. Ever since Sandy Hook happened and the discussion of gun control started again, weapons have been flying, and ammunition have been just flying off the shelves of sporting goods stores. But it's not just because of the fear that they won't be able to buy these weapons any longer that they're going to be banned, but it's a fear for their own safety. Why are we so afraid of our own safety? Not just of the government. Yet people are afraid of the government. And why is that? Because the government continues to overreach with more and more legislation against personal freedoms. Why do they need to do that? Because of an infringement on what's perceived as other people's freedoms. We've got to get to the point, this country has to figure out, we the people have to figure out, what are our moral values? Where did we lose our way? What's happened? Why is bullying so bad? We try to take punitive measures to try to prevent it. We try to Band-Aid the problem, but it's not going to go away. This is a Band-Aid. You know, after World War II rather, in the Korean War, 30 caliber carbines became very, very popular. And I'm not talking about the M1, just a 30 caliber carbine, very popular in civilian use, had a detachable magazine. You could piggyback it up to 60 rounds. That could be an assault weapon. But you know, in the 1950s and 1960s, 1970s, Nobody took those carbines and went to schools and movie houses and just slaughtered people. So what happens if we get rid of weapons? We make it harder to get them, so they just chain people up and set fires to the movie theaters. There's a deeper moral issue that we haven't found a way to solve. And for that reason, I will not put my name to this letter. I can't put my name on a Band-Aid, and I wish I had a solution. And my frustration is the same as everybody sitting here. You know, men in particular, what do, Dan? We fix things, don't we?
Try to, anyway.
I don't know how to fix this. That's not going to fix it. People of this country have to fix it. They have to find their moral values again. Yeah, I'm lecturing, and I'm sorry for the lecture. And I'll say one last thing, and then I'll quit. We've taken God out of the schools. We've taken God out of government. Is that what's happened? Is that what's happened to our moral values? I don't know. I wish I had an answer.